Hey Lynn, wow, some really impressive work here. My first note was to try and keep your technique onto the same. So here you're doing a bit of a lateral push, and now you're sort of doing a forced front cross, but you're still facing Whisky. So I think you're spending a lot of time here standing still that you could be spending in motion to help Whisky move. So try to do a normal front cross at 2 and then run to that spot at 3 and keep moving the whole time. So at no point are you standing still facing Whisky. The other issue here is that you ended up doing a forced front cross, rear cross, but we already discussed that. And you mentioned that you like to make it more complex than it needs to be. So in the repeat, I'd like to see just a normal forced front cross there. So we're comparing that to the Arco one just to see if he really needs the Arco for the decel there. Some dogs do, some dogs don't. So same here again with the forced front cross Yarko, you're doing the lateral push. So I'd like to see you one step closer to 2, already be turned now, and be moving into position now behind jump 3. So don't stand here facing him for quite so long. The longer that you face towards him, the more he's going to decelerate and lose speed there, so he has no reason to chase you here. So I like how your eyes and chest and foot are pointing to the line you want him to take, that's perfect, but start moving around that wing already so that you're now halfway down the bar by the time he gets here. And then when you take your step here, you'll be in a better position for the Arco and not having to shuffle backwards while he's jumping, which is just going to cue extension. So try to aim to get to the correct position by moving the whole time and not facing him, and then by the time you cue the Yarko, you can already start moving to the tunnel. But besides that, I think those were quite nicely done. You have quite a lot of time there, so I don't think you need to do the lateral push to get ahead, because you're still able to get into position easily and you're facing him longer than you need to. Now, I'm not sure with this one, this is sort of a mix between a human arrow next to the jump and a front cross. So again, remember to stick to one of the techniques. So let's say front cross. So in that case, your position's fine, but you should be taking a step with your dog side leg here for the front cross to help Whisky cue that turn a bit better. Now for the rest with the Whisky cross, you want to make sure that Whisky passes you. So at this point, you want to be slowing down and letting him get ahead of you. And then as soon as you see that he's ahead of you and he's committing to the backside of the jump, then you want to follow him around the wing to send him through. So what you ended up doing was sort of a backside send and then a tandem turn, and then you layered. So see how you're staying here on the landing side of the jump? So, and then as a result, you're having to do a tandem turn here and then layering to the tunnel. So for Whisky cross, you need to follow through with the dog. So you're sort of chasing them. Some people say that it's a good idea to think about grabbing the dog's tail and sort of pushing them over the jump and then following the dog around by holding it by the tail. Obviously don't actually do that, but imagine yourself doing that, and that'll help you push on the dog's line a bit more, and it will help you also point your chest and your eyes towards the dog's landing. So I'm giving you an example of here with me and Flo. So you can see here that I'm turning my chest and looking at the landing, but I keep moving forward and pushing on her line. So basically I'm chasing her from behind rather than staying on the landing side of the jump and layering. So you should be already on the takeoff side of the jump by the time your dogs come around, like I am here. So have another go at the Whisky. Really think about that thing where you picture grabbing the tail, and that will help you here so that you don't end up having to layer to the tunnel. That should speed the Whisky up for you as well, so it'll be interesting to see the time difference here. The thing with Whisky is it does cue a wider landing on exit, so I don't think it will be as fast anyway as the other options, just because he doesn't know about the wrap around the top wing. But I would like to see you do it properly as well, so let's have a go at doing it that way. So here your backside send timing is good. Again, I'd like to see a front cross onto a little bit more in the same position. Now here with your German, you should be already looking towards the landing and turning your chest towards the landing and moving around that wing to the tunnel. So the earlier you do that, the less you get in Whisky's way. So really try to focus on not waiting here for him to come around, but already moving yourself around that top wing and just using your eyes and your chest pointing to his landing to help him stay committed. So see how you're still only waiting for him here, and now you're running forwards. So you need to be running past that wing much earlier, so he hasn't got this moment here where he's right up your heels and he's having to collect because you're in his way. So focus on trying to get around that top wing a little faster, and I think this will be even faster for you. I think you can get this down below 6 seconds even with that German. So I'd like to see you try that one again, and yeah, really focus on getting past that jump. As long as you look at his landing and don't look directly at him, then he will still take the jump. He shouldn't refuse then. Now with your twister front cross, this was really well done. Really impressed with this one. The biggest things I would say here, your front cross here was a bit late, so you're not actually rotated yet and he's already taking off. So he lands a bit wide here, so that may affect the time. So just remember that with the front cross you need to be fully rotated by the time he takes off so he knows where to go next. And then after you send here, try to get moving around that wing a little earlier. So don't watch him here. You focus on getting behind here. So because what's happening now is by the time he lands, you're still in front of the wing on the landing side, and he has to now go around you as well as the wing, which makes his line significantly longer and adds a lot of strides. So if you compare that to Miko, when he does the same for his twist front cross, you can see that he's already behind the wing by the time the dog lands, and that way the dog only has to go around the wing and not around him. So try to think of it more as a twist and getting in position already behind that wing like you can see Miko doing here, so that by the time you finish it into the front cross, the dog has a nice straight line to the tunnel around the wing. But the actual technique you have down really nicely. You just need to get a little bit further ahead of Whisky by this point. And he has a very good backside send, so really make sure you trust that and get moving. Try not to wait for him quite so much. Now your back lap is really good. I don't really have too much feedback here. Mainly at this point I'd like you to keep your connection a little bit more, and that will make this backside send a bit smoother, but I like how you're staying connected during the send. Just make sure from the front cross to the send you're also connected. But here this is really good. You may be able to start cueing the forward motion a fraction earlier, but it would really be like a tenth of a second. It was really, really nice. Your motion here is perfect towards that tunnel on a parallel line, so you're giving him lots of information there. Back lap is never going to be as fast for him as the chasing techniques just because you're not using your motion, and he really does rely a lot on your motion, so I didn't expect it to be one of the faster options, but it's really good that you can do it, and he obviously reads it well, so it's a great technique to keep in your pocket if you can't get somewhere or if you need to get a head start to the next obstacle. Now with these beeline options, this one is really, really good. He reads the layering well. Again, because he's not having that chase factor here, it's not going to be as fast for you, I think. But you're starting your front cross nice and quickly. You're not backing up too much, which is nice, and you're starting to move to the tunnel pretty quickly here. You probably could have cued the force front cross part a little bit earlier so he didn't take so many strides before takeoff, but there wouldn't have been much in it, so I was really happy with that. Again, I don't think the layering techniques will be as fast for him because he loses some of the chase factor, but again, nicely done, and it would be a good skill for distance work for you guys, so that's great. Now with the other beeline techniques, I really want you to use your motion to help him accelerate into the turn a bit more. Not only will it make it smoother for you guys, but you'll also get more speed out of him as well, I think. So rather than leading out all this way, and then releasing him when you're already in position for the force run cross, I'd like to see you start lining up next to two, or even slightly further back, but for this one, next to two. Get your connection, release him and start running so that you're running together. So that while Whisky's doing 1 and 2, you're running into position for 3. That way he's got a reason to chase you and keep accelerating and try and get there faster. And that will also make it smoother for you. So now you're already pretty much in position here and you're having to stand still while he's going from 1 to 2, which is wasting a lot of your motion as an element. So remember, motion's your most important element, so we're going to try and use it as much as we can to get extra speed out of the dog. The only other thing I'd say with this one is just to start the front cross earlier. So by now you should already be telling him to take the bar. He's committed to coming to that correct line. You can see that because he'll be looking at you by this point rather than at that jump. And then as soon as he's committed, you can start cueing the jump so he knows what's coming next. And that'll just save him taking so many strides here before he takes off because he's not quite sure, and so he's coming wider than he needs to. And he's only just doing the lead change back there. So let's try and cue that the jump about 2 strides earlier so he's getting more information. But aside from that, the rest of this is nice. Your connection's good. Your motion through the front cross is really good. So just start the force front cross a bit earlier. Have some trust that he's going to take that jump. If you find by starting it earlier that he's starting to cut in and take the wrong side of the jump, you can always reward him on the line on the takeoff side of 3 as you start moving into the force front cross a few times. So he learns that even though you're moving, you've already told him to come to that line, so he has to commit there. Now again here for this one, I'd like to see you not leading out quite so far, so the more motion you have together, the better. For the whisky cross, that's actually specifically even more important because with whisky cross, you need to show your motion to help the dog commit to the backside of the jump. So really you want him to commit to the backside of 3 before you start to push on his line. So I'd like to see you lead out to 2 at most, maybe even a few steps behind 2, so that you're not having to stand still here and wait for him. So try to make it that you're running together. Send him to the backside of 3 as if you were just doing a normal backside send. And then once he commits to the backside, then you can start pushing on his line and take a few steps parallel to the jump on the takeoff side to help him here. So this is nice. So just here, try to keep moving a little bit parallel. And really you want him to get around this wing before you, so he's not having to move around both you and the wing. So try and send him to the backside first, let him start turning around the wing, and then chase him through. And again, remember that analogy about pretending to grab his tail, and that'll help you follow all your elements nicely over the jump to sending him where you want. But this part's really nice. Your false turn's beautiful. He obviously reads the whisky well. So I think you can just help him out a little bit more by adding some motion and letting him commit to that backside before you start to push on his line. Again, this won't be as fast an option for Whisky because you're driving him from behind. He tends not to accelerate as hard when he's being driven from behind as when he's chasing you, which is quite common. So I wouldn't really have this as an option unless you had no others. But again, it's a good option to try, so when you do need it, if you're stuck, then you do have it. Again here, try not to lead out. So with twist, it's really hard if you're standing still to get enough drive to the backside here, so which means you're having to go really, really far and deep to this backside. Once you go far there, it's very hard for you to get back around the bottom wing. So by now you should be already almost around this bottom right wing of jump 3. So to do that, don't lead out, run with him from about halfway between 1 and 2, and that way you can send him to the backside much earlier because your motion will push him to the backside. So aim to be in the near the cups of the bottom wing of jump 3 when you're sending him to the backside. So that way you've got a lot more time to get around here. So your backwards motion here is really good, but it needs to be much earlier. So you can do everything earlier so that you don't end up on his line here by not going so far to that far wing of jump 3. So less lead out means you can move together, that motion will push him to the backside, and then you can have a much smoother turn there. So try that again without leading out, or just lead out to between 1 and 2, so you've got a bit of motion together and you're not completely left behind. Same thing here as well, motion together will help send him to the backside better. The other thing here is that you actually ended up blocking the wing, so always remember with backsides, think about where the dog's line is and make sure they can see the wing so they can commit to the right line. So at this point you're in front of the wing from this angle, I think, and Whisky can't actually see it to prepare his backside for the wrap. So I'd like to see you here about 4 strides further back, so that Whisky's actually getting ahead of you at this point, and you're sending him to the backside ahead of you, and then as he's reaching the backside, you're chasing him around for the wrap. That way you get to keep your motion going the whole time as well. Makes it much smoother for both of you, and he's got a much nicer line from 2 to 3 that's not so wide because you're not on his line. And don't forget with the reverse wrap to start looking at the landing as early as possible to help him commit. So you did do it here, but not until he was already jumping, so the earlier you do that, the better, because the faster he'll come around the wing. So really, really nicely done with these options. Just focus on adding in more motion, like I mentioned, and being earlier, which is easier when you add the motion. Alright, I look forward to your next videos.